Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'm going to be reviewing Longlegs. So Longlegs is a new horror thriller directed by Oz Perkins, and I have to say, this movie had a ton of hype. People are talking about how it's like the scariest movie ever, the scariest movie of the year, and while I think it's really good, I don't know if it quite lives up to that label. I will say I'm going to go into spoilers in this review, so if you don't want to hear anything about this movie, I would turn it off now and come back after you've watched the film. This film tells the story of Lee, who's played by Micah Monroe, who's an FBI agent who ends up being put on the case of Longlegs. He's a serial killer who somehow has the ability over multiple decades to get fathers of families to end up killing their entire family as well as killing themselves without him ever actually being there, without him being there for the murders, but there's always a letter marked by Longlegs with a cryptic message interwoven into the text. I think this movie really excels is where it nails the atmosphere and tone, captures that detective mystery while slowly wading into the paranormal. At only an hour and 41 minutes, it is kind of a slow burn, but I think it's well earned. And I think the way that it moves slowly along really builds the tension and adds to the overall effect of the film. Micah Monroe has really become a staple when it comes to these atmospheric horror films, and this is no exception. I think she does a fantastic job trying to show a wide range of emotions while trying to still stay somewhat composed as an FBI agent, trying to be there and not collapse underneath the pressure, but slowly cracking away at her past until it's fully revealed by the end. There's even moments in this film where we feel paralleled to Longlegs. I think that's a testament to Micah Monroe's performance because she's acting up against one of the wildest actors of all time, Nicolas Cage, and his performance in this one may be one of his craziest. I feel like what most people talk about in this movie is Nicolas Cage's performance. It's definitely something I feel like everyone will take away from this is just how wild he is. Longlegs is this incredibly strange looking individual who clearly has had some kind of maybe botched surgeries or something strange going on with his physical appearance on his face. He wears this almost white makeup that makes him look even more unsettling. His hair is wild and unkept. He wears this strange attire. He's clearly meant to look very unsettling, and they do a really good job of doing so throughout the film. In the moments where he's fully revealed, particularly the scene involving the interrogation of Longlegs, were really intense, and you could tell that Nicolas Cage was really having a great time with this movie. And there's even a moment in this film where he's singing, which is just so bizarre. And I will say, while as much as I enjoyed it, and I do like the unique take on this kind of character, it does feel almost borderline silly at times, particularly with the singing part. It does work with kind of the background music and the moment and the crescendo of what's happening in that scene, but at the same time, it's so bizarre that it almost takes me out of the movie. Felt like Nicolas Cage was given the green light to just fully go for it in this movie, and sometimes it does feel like he's in a slightly different film. Saying that stark shift from a very slow detective thriller to this wild over-the-top performance does make it that much more impactful and kind of unnerving. One of the things I think might hurt this movie just a little bit for general audiences is the expectations that were set for it. Like I said earlier on, people were talking about this like it's the scariest movie of all time. It's not all in all that scary in my opinion. I do think it's unsettling. I think it's unnerving. I think there's moments that are shocking and maybe just a little bit scary, but whole and whole, I don't think it's like a traditional scary movie, if you will. I know that's kind of a loose term, and some people will find something scary that other audiences don't. I do think the use of the 1990s setting does work really well for this film, particularly because someone like myself who grew up during that time, it creates this kind of strange sense of memory and the strange sense of nostalgia for a time while you're watching this film. So I think you're almost in the seat of the character where you're feeling this idea of remembering this time. You're seeing glimpses of things on the wall, whether it be, Bill Clinton's in the background on the wall of the office. Or you're seeing these things that remind you back of this time. It creates this, even in moments, kind of like a liminal space in some of the spaces that they are throughout the film. And I think they did a really good job of that because there's this ever-present kind of thing that's lingering in the background while you're following your main character. I believe it's supposed to be like a sense of the devil. The devil is kind of leading lead. The devil's following her because of her connection with Longlegs and the events that are revealed later on in the film. And I think that sense of just being followed, and even the camera work, there's a lot of tracking shots. There's a lot of use of making you feel like you're being followed, like she's being tracked throughout the film. Alicia Witt plays Lee's mother in the film, and when we get to kind of the third act of the movie, when we get the full reveal of what's happening and her involvement in the Longlegs case, I think she does a really good job of playing just this disturbing individual that's doing these horrible acts with such callous nature because she feels she's being compelled or forced to do so. And just the moments where there's this clash of emotion between Lee, our main character, who's finally thrown into this full realization, having to do what she has to do to her mother, it really does hit home by the end. I think the last few frames of this movie really drive forward what we're supposed to feel for this character and what she's been through throughout this film, and really what the meaning of all of it is. I will say, while I do enjoy ambiguity in films, the movie doesn't do the best job of really explaining what's going on. Upon first watch, I probably got about 85% of what's happening in this movie, but I even did have to go look and read some of the Easter eggs and some of the strange things and the way that this movie is shot that are happening in the background that I didn't necessarily notice upon first viewing, and I definitely do want to check out the film again. So at its core, this movie is really involving the book of Revelation. In fact, Lee references it multiple times throughout the film, so they are trying to get that point across. If you're not fully familiar with what's going on in that scripture, you might be a little bit lost at times at why things are happening and how things are happening. At least that's how I felt upon first viewing of this film. And even the way that Longlegs is pulling off his murders is kind of strange. It's not fully explained. We know that he's creating these dolls that have a metal orb inside their head that's infused with this evil energy, who then Lee's mother, dressed as a nun, is able to get this into the family's homes, and that energy is able to get into the father's mind, into the family's mind, and cause them to commit these acts for the devil. Obviously, Longlegs is kind of a symbolism or an encapsulation of the Antichrist, and we have some other moving parts in there. I won't dive too much into an explanation of this movie, because I'm not going to pretend like I fully understand everything that's happening in it. There's some great media out there, some great video essays about this movie that are worth checking out if you want a breakdown of exactly what's happening. There are a few plot points in this movie that feel just a little bit rushed, in particular the capture of Longlegs. He's just kind of found at a bus station and they bring him in, and it just feels like it moves very quickly for the way that it's building up. I would have liked to maybe see more of an investigation or a big climax of capturing this person. Obviously, maybe there's this idea that he wanted to be captured because he wanted to create this confrontation with Lee, but it is strange how it's kind of moved along in the story with the way that it's structured up into that point. I personally really loved the first probably 3/4 of this movie. I think that the way that it plays out reminded me so much of incredible films like Zodiac or Silence of the Lambs, and when it fully reveals itself, it feels like it's almost just a little bit rushed. It could have maybe benefited from 15 or 20 more minutes if we would have seen maybe a little bit more backstory into Longlegs because of how quickly he is revealed and how quickly he's taken away in the film. There is some gore in this movie that is pretty intense. It's not a lot in the movie, but there are a few scenes, particularly the interrogation scene with Longlegs, and then when we see Lee's mother fully get revealed for her workings in the Longlegs case. I really enjoyed the score and sound effects used in this movie. I was reading some articles about some of kind of the sound artifacts they added into the movie to make it even that much more unsettling. So I do think the moments where we get these very strange and surreal sounds interjected into the story help add the attention and just create a really, really unique atmosphere. Like, I can't say enough that I think that's the best part about this movie is the setting and atmosphere. So overall, I thought Longlegs was a well-crafted movie with some great performances, spectacular atmosphere, and a very unique story. I do think that general audiences will struggle a little bit with this one. Some of my favorite movies, like It Comes at Night, suffer from the same marketing where it feels like it's like, oh, this is so scary, it's just traditional horror. And some people might go into it and just think it's really weird and really strange and not think it's all that scary. So I think it's going to be kind of divisive. I think there's going to be people that love this movie, will go into it and fully get engrossed in the lore and want to hear more and read about it and watch video essays. And I think there's other people that are going to watch it and be like, that was really weird and I don't know what I just watched and I didn't really like it. So I always love to hear people's opinions. If you really like this movie, let me know what you liked about it. What are your theories about it? What have you read about it? Because I've read a pretty decent amount over the past couple days. I wanted to take a while to do this review because coming out of the theater, I really didn't know how I felt about it. So I would love to hear what you think about it. And if you really didn't like it or you really didn't enjoy the overall experience, let me know what you thought about it because I love to hear everybody's opinions. Movies are so subjective, and I always love to hear people that love a movie or hate a movie and kind of understand what bridges that gap. So leave those comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.